Howdy ho, folks. Howdy ho. Howdy ho, America and points beyond. Who has power and what are they doing with it? Politics is not a natural act.
That's right.
That's right.
I must admit, I never heard that one from you, gentlemen.
There's so many feisty fighters against the greedheads and boneheads. So grab a libation, join the conversation. It's the personal side of politics, and it is surprisingly tasty. Indeed, here we are again with another Hightower Radio Chat and Chew, coming at you from my Chat and Chew table right here for the happy hour. And we invite you to grab a libation of your own choice and pull up a chair here with us, because we're going to have a delightful discussion here tonight about BS. You ready? Okay, well, we'll get to it in a moment. First of all, just take care of yourself. And DZ is with us, as always. Deanna Zant, that would be.
Hello, Hightower. How are you?
Doing dandy. And I've got my my beer for the evening, which is Arrogant Bastard Ale.
That's perfect for the topic.
We're going to talk about some arrogant bastards here tonight and how they're running roughshod over the vast majority of us.
Absolutely.
Most importantly, what we can do about it, how we can team up, make a difference. That's what this program is about. And so we bring to you people who are in that fight, not necessarily because they want to be in the fight, but are pulled into it by the powers that be to stand up for the powers that ought to be, the ordinary workaday people in this country.
That's right.
And we're going to get into that. So grab yourself a brewski. What have you got, Deanna? Are you sipping on something good?
I do. I do have something interesting. This is brand new for me, but this is Flying Embers hard kombucha, because I have turned into that person. I know. I knew there would be that face.
It really is.
Listen,
but
a friend of mine gave it to me. You what?
Yeah. Delicious?
It actually is. I did not expect to like it as much as I do. It's it's not too sweet, it's not too sour, it's gluten free, which,
kind of like me, not too sweet, not too sour. Yeah,
just like you.
I could be for that. Yeah. Okay. We want you to join us, be a part of this. Deanna will pull up a chair for you here. Just check in and tell us where you're from. Tell us maybe what you're drinking, but also talk about this food economy that we are in. And we're going to talk about that tonight, because the big economic story today, of course, is inflation. Inflation is sweeping across America. Inflation is killing the American middle class and working class people and poor people even more so. And inflation. Well, what is causing this inflation? Well, they say Joe Biden is causing the inflation, of course. And in fact, they've got a whole Rube Goldberg kind of system here, a lot of arrows pointing. And it is that Biden is lavishing giveaways like childcare, extended health care, and extended unemployment benefits to so many people that is allowing shiftless layabouts to not go to work, and inducing them, leading them to create widespread blockages in the supply chain, in our global supply chain, and that creates shortages of everything. So corporate bosses are compelled to raise prices across the land, thus swamping the middle class with systemic inflation. I'll pause here if you need to get a hanky to wipe your tears for that sad story about how corporations are forced to raise prices on it. Of course, it is all hogwash, or as we say in West Texas, bovine excrement, because what is at foot here is not a crisis of inflation, but a crisis of corporate greed. Corporations are running roughshod over us. We've been here before. We go back to the 1970s. Gerald Ford was president, and we had not 7% inflation at that time. We had 12% inflation, plus massive unemployment at the same time. But luckily, Gerald Ford and his Republican colleagues in the Senate and House led the fight to do something about it. And that something was this: a win button, a button that said win. And that stood for whip inflation now. And indeed, if you signed a pledge that was sent to Jerry Ford at the White House that you would whip inflation now, then you would get a win button from Gerald Ford. Bob Hope, comedian, said that when Ford issued the Whip Inflation Now program, that the price of whips went up 50% overnight. And Russell Baker, a writer in the New York Times, said that he took his win button down to a meat market and held it up to a platter of hamburger, and the price smiled, purred, and went up immediately. and Alan Greenspan, Gerald Ford's chief economic advisor at the time, said he was new on the job. And he was in the meeting in the White House when this was introduced by Ford's staff. And he said that it was unbelievably stupid. And he thought, what am I doing here? Well, here we are again with inflation. And the answer supposedly is that we just have to sustain this inflation because corporations are forced to pay to increase their prices. Well, you know, in times of shortages, corporations are not under the free enterprise system supposed to increase their prices. They're actually supposed to compete by leveling their prices, even lowering them in many cases. And instead of that, they have been increasing it, and that is the cause of the price increases that we're getting, because that jacks up their profits for their shareholders. And that's your basic economic lesson for tonight. But we want to take this back to the basics. We want to go back to the land with this, because that's the big story that's affecting most people, is the price of beef, right? That's something people notice. If hamburger prices go up there at the supermarket or go up at the McDonald's or other cafes, people take note of that. Well, what's going on? Why are the ranchers raising the prices on us? Well, we've got a rancher with us here tonight. And his name is Steve. And Steve has been a fighter for agricultural justice, but also economic justice for all people for all of his life. He's a third generation farmer. Steve Charter out of Montana, a rancher out there. Steve, first of all, thank you for joining us tonight. Where do we find you? You're on your ranch at the moment?
Yep, in the kitchen.
In the kitchen. All right, here we are together. So, Steve, first of all, as I understand it, you are the grandson of outlaws. Is that right?
Yeah, that's the story anyway.
Well, what is it? What outlaw?
So my grandfather came from a big family in Iowa, and his father kind of left the family. So my grandfather, Bert Charter, thought he would just head out west, and I think he was 14 years old, and got a job doing dishes. But at some point, he fell in with Butch Cassidy and Harry Longbow, and Harry Longbow's the Sundance Kid. And nobody ever admitted this. So like the stories, like what my dad knew is he would, when he was supposed to be asleep and these old people would come and visit, and that's where he kind of got some of his information. But since then we found stuff in museums and newspaper articles, but it was kind of the same deal. Is a lot of these cowboys like Butch Cassidy, they worked for some of these big outfits, these big English, right. And they kind of divided up the West between them. And then they hired cowboys, and then they said, if you just happen to, one of the neighboring cows, if you just happen to see his calf, well, and it's not branded, just go ahead and brand it with our brand.
Right.
And so that was called mavericking. And the cowboys that were doing that thought, well, maybe why shouldn't I put my brand on there if I'm just going to put some brand on there? And the ones that did that got blackballed. They couldn't work for the big outfits anymore. So they were kind of out of a living. So then they got kind of some more creative ways to make a living. And the reason they were kind of successful at it was they robbed the banks and the railroads. And most of the people didn't really like the banks and the railroads because they were putting it to them. So they had a lot of cooperation from
it's like that old Woody Guthrie song about Pretty Boy Floyd the Outlaw. Had that verse in it. As through this world I travel, I see lots of funny men. Some will rob you with a 6-gun and some with a fountain pen. And so people knew that it was the fountain pens that were doing the serious stealing. And they're doing that today. I hope that your grandfather got a piece of the royalty of the movie, but probably not. And in fact, the cowboys themselves, that's that we romanticize Gene Autry and Roy Rogers and heroes, Hopalong Cassidy, and etc. The cowboys, but cowboying was just a rough job, literally a back-breaking job. And if you broke your back, well, then you were just laying there on your own. That was done. But now we're in a situation where that is happening to the whole ranching economy. I'm talking about the dirt economy of ranching. That we have a phenomena of concentration of economic power in the hands of a few giant meat packers. And by giant, I'm talking about Tyson Foods and Cargill, and JBS is the biggest. That's a Brazilian outfit. And the 4 biggest of them now control 85% of all beef production, beef sales in the United States. So if you go down and buy a pound of hamburger, you're paying money to those 4 corporations primarily. And the rationale is that, of course, but we're paying ranchers for those cattle. Tell us about the reality of that ranching economy from a guy who's right there on the land, trying to stay on the land. You're a 3rd generation, I believe, ranching family there in Montana. We've got booming beef prices. How's that working out for you?
Well, it's not working out because we're not getting our share of the consumer dollar. And, while, during this whole pandemic thing, the packers have been, at one time they were making $40, $50, maybe $100 a head. Then it went up like $300-$400 a head. At some point, it was like $500 a head, and we were just amazed. And then at one point they were making up to $1,000 a head, while at the same time we were losing money. And the reason they can do that is we basically don't have a market anymore. They just, because of their concentration, because of the way that they get their cattle through these captive supplies, there's just no market for us to get our share anymore. And as theirs just keeps going up, ours going down. And, when people hear that ranchers are losing money right now, they just can't believe it because what they're paying in the stores. So by allowing all this concentration to go on all these years, we're losing it. But on the other hand, the consumers are paying more. So this whole idea that we're going to deregulate and let these companies kind of go their way, it's really worked out well for them. They've done really well. But the rest of us, producers and consumers, we're just losing out. And we're going to continue until something's done about this. If we start maybe enforcing some of these laws, and we have laws that are supposed to protect us from this, and back, well, it started with Reagan. You know, he had the idea, well, there's just too much regulation and these companies are being held back. And then it kind of continued in the Clinton administration where we just need to turn these big companies loose and it'll be good for the consumers. And it just has not worked out that way. And, you know, if you want to go way back, this happened back in the 20s with the robber barons. And it was not just in meat packing, but in meat packing, it wasn't as bad as it is now. I think there were 5 companies, but you know, the conditions in these plants, they were selling rotten meat. The people in the plants were being exploited. The ranchers weren't getting their share. So at some point, people just got sick of it and they broke up these monopolies. And
literally sick.
Livestock industry, they passed the Packers and Stockyards Act.
Yeah.
And after that, there were, you know, lots of packers. Like Billings, Montana had a beef packing plant and a pork packing plant. And there were lots of small feeders and lots of ranchers. And everyone was doing pretty good. And then I think it was an economist called Milton Friedman came along and he said, no, this is a really bad system that we just need to let these companies consolidate and get big. And that's what they did.
Because they will be efficient. That was Milton Friedman's.
And they are very efficient.
Yes, they are.
They take it all for themselves.
They can extract money from consumers, and they can extract money from the producers as well. And that here's our word of the night. Monopoly, we know. Monopoly is when you've got a few sellers and a bunch of buyers. But monopsony is the twin of monopoly. And monopsony is when you have a few buyers, in this case, 4 meatpacking companies that control 85% of the market, and hundreds, even thousands of cattle producers, in this case, trying to go to market. But when you go to market, the 4 are not. It used to be that you had local slaughterhouses, local meat packers all across the country. A county would have its own, or certainly a few counties would have their own. So you had a local market and competition. They would bid on your cattle, literally at an auction. Yep. And you went recently, Steve, as I understand it, to market. You saw supermarket prices going up on beef, and you thought, well, maybe now's the time. So you took 120 head or so to the auction. That was under JBS. That's the old Swift food company, now owned by Brazilian, the largest meat packers in the world now. And what happened when you went in with your cattle and said, "What do you bid on this?"
So we had about 125 head on feed at a local feed yard, and things look pretty good. Like we might be able to do a little better by keeping them and feeding them. And then, of course, the pandemic started, and the big companies, although they were selling their beef and making, you know, at that time I think they were making $500 a head. They used that just to totally drop our market. And so it got down to we needed to sell the first load. And the guy at the feed yard called up JBS, and basically they divided up. So they're the only only buyer we have in our area, because they don't go into each other's area.
One buyer. And called him up, and they said, well,
we really aren't going to bid on your cattle, but if we have a slot available next week, and if you take that slot, we'll get them killed, and then we'll just tell you what the price is. And I was like,
deliver your cattle and we'll tell you what you get.
Exactly. And so I was like, no, we can't do that. And they said, you know, the guy at the feed yard said, well, you know, they're ready to go. We can't just keep feeding them. You probably better take it. So we did, and I think we got about a buck a pound, which is losing a lot of money. The next couple of weeks, we had a second load to go, and it was the same deal. And then they decided to give us 90 cents. Then on the last load, it was like, because they were actually the plants were slowing down, so they were giving preference to their captive contracts, the people they have contracts with. So it was like, we don't even have room for your cattle at this point. Maybe we can get them in. And so we've got a load of cattle. Like, what do we do with them? And then my daughter, who had already been marketing beef and is involved with a local food hub, had a sense of the market that people were wanting beef and they were wanting local beef. And she said, I think if we can get these cattle slaughtered, I think I can sell them. And so we stuck out our neck on this, but we found a place to get them slaughtered and found cold storage. And then, the magic of the internet, we started selling beef and people loved it. And, people around here, you'd think they would be getting good beef, but all our good beef goes down somewhere, and what comes back is not that great. So people were getting the quality of beef that they'd never seen before. So that, and that helped us out. But, in Montana, there's more cows than there are people. So, we can try to develop local markets, but we also need a fair market to sell into.
Yeah, and you got to have a system built into it. Deanna?
Yeah, a lot of people are in the comments talking about how this kind of, weird free market centralization of things is kind of ruining a lot of industries. And that's something, Steve, you and I talked about, which I'll come to in a second. But also, just hitting back on some of the historical stuff. I'll put a link in the comments to this, but there's a New York Times podcast that you appear in, Steve, where they really dig into this history of if you were a history nerd, this was fascinating. I cried twice listening to it, because it's a really good story. And Steve's in it, and now you know him. Anyway, so some of that historical context was so interesting to me, because it's like, oh, we fought this fight before. This has happened before. And we have laws, but they are not being enforced. They are not, it's kind of mind blowing to me. I also wanted to shout out, we have viewers from all over the place tonight. I am truly impressed. We got some New York City people. Those are my people. Hello. We got Hill Country, Burnett County. We've got South Korea. Ron's drinking coffee because he's at work in South Korea, and Jane is enjoying a post-Valentine's champagne. We've got people in Iowa. We've got Indiana. I love our crew. I love our crew. We just got a little bit of everybody everywhere, and that's fantastic.
Because we're all a part of this. For one thing, I mean, the beef price has gone up. They went up 21% last year. Generally speaking, beef prices went up at the supermarket. And yet, here's Steve Charter saying he's taking cattle to the market right there in Montana, more ranching of which you cannot get, and no price. He goes into a market controlled by JBS, one of the big four conglomerates that control beef in our country and mostly around the world. And they offer $1 a pound for his cattle.
And I think people don't, people that aren't from farming and ranching really don't understand how low that is. Like how you cannot live on that. That's if
Steve will tell you that it costs him $1.30 a pound to produce that.
So, and now our input costs are just going through the roof. So it's a lot higher than that now. But just kind of going back to what Diana was talking about with all the people watching is, we beat this thing once back in the 20s. People got sick of it. And we can do it again. But me as a producer, or as producers, there's just not enough of us. We just don't have the political clout. But if we can get everybody who is hurt by this, the consumers, what they're doing is bad for the environment, the environmentalists. If we can get all those people on board, we can beat them again. And it's not going to be easy because they got a really good deal going, and they've got a lot of power. But if we can get everybody who's hurt by this and has a food system that just serves these big companies, and it doesn't serve any of the rest of us.
Right.
But we can turn this around, and that's why and the response to that podcast has been phenomenal. And mostly what people said is like, well, I had no idea. We thought ranchers were doing great, but then the next thing they said, well, it's the same way in our business. We used to have more players, more markets, and we don't now. Yeah. So it's not just the beef industry; it's everybody. And,
right. Jesse Jackson said it. He said we might not all have come over on the same boat, but we're in the same boat now.
Exactly. Yep.
And that is a reality, and that is the consumer who's now being ripped off with beef prices that are beyond what should be in the market price, and that's the ranchers like Steve here. It's also the workers in those meat packing plants who are being not just underpaid, but also exposed to COVID, and it's pretty horrendous if you've ever been in one of these humongous meat packing plants that are approximately the size of Delaware. One of them would be, and then the environment and people who care about the animals, all of that. So it's all of us. The vast majority of people are being ripped off by this system. Now, where then is our government?
Well, I also want to let you know on that note, where are all the John Boyd is also here, and so whenever you're ready to bring him on, I'm ready to shoot him into you.
Ready right now.
We're ready right now.
Yes.
Looks like John Boyd's ready too. I'm going to hit the button.
Okay, John.
Boyd.
Hello. Look at that. Oh man.
Thank you very, very much for
He's
having me.
got the second best looking hat tonight, doesn't he?
Not as good looking as yours. I'm looking at your hat. You look good. You got your beard, and nobody can do it like you. Nobody can do it like
John Boyd
yes.
is a champion. He's a farmer himself. Up on the Virginia-North Carolina border, I think it is, with a fourth generation farmer that he's been, and including some crops like corn and soybean, et cetera, but also raising 100 head of beef cattle as well, and has been a chicken farmer. So you pretty well tried it all, I think, John. But he did something a few years back that was extraordinary. He noticed that there was vast discrimination. It's hard scrabble to be a farmer, period. But then add that you are Black to that, or you're Native American, or you're Latino, or whatever category. Women.
That's true.
The vast majority of the new farmers today are women, and they're facing these discriminatory actions, not just by the companies, but by our own government. John, tell us the story of when this came home to you. You had a farm, and you went into the Farm Security Administration to get a little loan. That's an agency that helps farmers get capital and be able to get along. It's supportive of the farmers, except, John.
Yes. And I can't stop without giving a plug to that gentleman, Stephen Carter, because he really laid it in. I'm a beef cattle farmer, and I'm down here selling beef cattle for, $1.25 and 30 cents, on the hoof. And it's the big guy that's, winds up in the grocery store $6 a pound for the same thing I'm giving it away for, and we do these things because we're farmers. We need the money. They know they got us by you know what here, and they're taking advantage of that. So I definitely had to just chime in on what Steve was saying. He's 110% correct. If farmers would band together, we could bust this thing up. Black, blue, white, or green. If we came together and say, you know what, we're not going to do this anymore, somebody would pay attention. But farmers are the most independent people, independent thinkers that you're ever going to meet. So I'm going to stop there and then talk about USDA and the plight of.
Well, I want you to do that. John formed. He looked around for organizational help and et cetera, and the organizations were not there. So he did what scrappy people often do. He created his own. He formed the National Black Farmers Association. And as I understand it, John, you went in your early days, before you formed the organization, you went in to get a loan, which the Farm Security Administration is supposed to provide to you. Yes. And you went in to get it. And where did your loan application go?
It wound up in a trash can, while I was sitting there in front of him. And,
you mean literally, you saw them put your application?
Right in front of me. And I asked him, I said, you're not going to process this loan application? He said, no, and I'm not going to lend you any of my money until you learn how to talk to me. And I was graduated in the 80s, and I was a 3-letter man, and some of my best friends that played football, basketball, and baseball with me were white, and I thought the country had really left the piece of the 60s that we saw on television. And I walked into the Farmers Home Administration, it was called then, and it was like stepping back in time. They would only see black farmers on Wednesday. We named it Black Wednesday. Took 387 days to process a black farmer's loan request, less than 30 days to process a white farm loan request. The average subsidy to a black farmer was $200. The top 10% in this country receive $1 million per farmer from the U.S. Farm Subsidy Program. The disparate figures, especially from a population where at the turn of the century, black farmers were 1 million black farm families strong in this country. 1 in every 15 were black in this country, and we tilled 20 million acres of land. We were tilling 20 million acres of land, primarily from the Virginia Delmarva line on down to the southeastern corridor of the United States. Wherever you saw slavery, that's where you would find black farmers. And I began to sue the government because of the discriminatory treatment we were receiving, not just here in Virginia, but all across the country. And we wound up 2 settlements, one under the Clinton administration and the other under former President Barack Obama. The last was $1.25 billion. But it took 30 years to get. Many of the black farmers who were in the struggle with me at the beginning were dead. And you got to figure I started when I was 18. And the farmers that were in the hallway with me on Black Wednesday were all 60, 70 years of age. The average age of a black farmer is 61 years of age. And quite frankly, Mr. Hightower, we're facing extinction in this country. And Congress is moving too slow. We have a remedy that passed in an act of Congress, by act of Congress in the COVID relief bill for $5 billion for debt relief for farmers of color, Black, Hispanic, all the ethnic groups that you just described earlier. And when that happened, we thought we were heading in the right direction. And white farmers sued us in 12 different complaints and got a court injunction in Florida and in Texas, blocking payments to black farmers and other farmers of color. So it's been like pushing the wheelbarrow straight uphill, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you've been in this fight. I'm going to have you describe one thing, is when you first you reached out and began to find out you weren't the only one, and it wasn't 20 of you, it wasn't 200 of you, it was thousands of you facing exactly the same oppression, and you made a march to Washington, and you didn't go up on a bus, you didn't go up in a Cadillac. How'd you get to Washington?
Mule and wagon. By 2 mules, I named them Struggle and 40 Acres. 40 acres. And the other one I named Struggle because we were still struggling. And
Yeah.
I struggled on to Washington, D.C., 387 miles, 17 days. It snowed a couple of days, and I met some wonderful people on this mule ride to Washington. Many of them were white who supported me and said, the way the government is dumping on you guys is awful. And I met some that weren't so nice too. But I used the mule and wagon because my daddy said anybody, John, over the age of 50 would understand the significance and the meaning of a mule to a black farmer or a sharecropper.
Right.
It wasn't just an animal, it was a way of life. We used it to work. We used it to drive to the store and to a church on Sunday. It was transportation, and it was a means to make a living. Every black farmer had a mule, so that's why I used the symbolic mule and wagon, and also Jesus Christ rode a donkey in Jerusalem.
He didn't come in on an elephant, did he?
He said, I come in peace. I came in peace, but I also came with the message too.
Yeah. Well, and you had a great slogan, the old slogan, the old saying, 40 acres and a mule. And your slogan was, we got our mule, now we're looking for the 40 acres.
Well, we're looking for our 40. We never got it. That's why the debt relief, Jim Hightower, was so significant to us. I saw that as a turning point where, we had a couple of settlements, but they were full of mistakes. But the $5 billion a debt relief would allow a black farmer who had debt with USDA to really start over, erase his debt and move on. And I would say just about all white farmers who applied for debt relief got it. And that's where the complaints in federal court never said that. They never said, we were the ones getting the debt relief. They put it in federal court. White farmers did this is a new loan program that excludes white farmers, and it's reverse discrimination. And I hate to say this, many don't know, many of those guys in those complaints don't know what discrimination is or what it feels like. It's when they call you nigger. It's when they throw your application in the trash can in front of you. It's when they spit or spat tobacco juice on you. That's what discrimination is, when you treat a targeted group of people because of the color of their skin or whatever they look like differently than you do the other races.
And this reminds me of a little bit what we were talking about in preparation for the show, is the other struggle you're fighting right now with PepsiCo and Frito-Lay. The entrenched racism in the food industry is pretty wild. Like, everything, it seems like everything, y'all have spoken about this, Steve, you also, that everything seems to really based on relationships and who you know and relationships. And that used to work. That used to work in town, whatever. But in these giant multinational corporations, who's running it? Billionaire white guys. And who's benefiting from it?
Right.
Billionaire white guys. So talk a little bit about PepsiCo and the potatoes.
Yeah,
I would like to talk to that, and thank you, Deanna, for raising the issue of PepsiCo, because it's a modern day example of what black farmers have to go through. All of the contracts at PepsiCo are held now by white farmers, all of them, white male farmers. They don't have women farmers there, and I should say, Jim, women farmers are on the rise, but they don't have any contracts at PepsiCo. And we raised the issue about Aunt Jemima on the pancake box. So they changed the picture, but they didn't change the way that they do business with blacks. And so I spoke to them for almost 2 years. They started off really great after we raised the issue about Aunt Jemima. Yes, we want to do business with black farmers. We recognize none of our contracts are with black farmers. And we have a 2-year dialogue. We jump through all these hoops. We meet the standards of that they put before. We tested the soil, the distance to the buying stations, all of these things we could deliver. They were excited. And then in January, they said, we're going to have a call about next steps. So I get on this call with PepsiCo executives, and they said, well, we're going to go in a different direction that won't include the National Black Farmers Association and its members. So they waited for the media to die down. People like you, Jim, who raised the issue about Aunt Jemima on the pancake box. They waited till the cameras went away. And then they said, okay, well, we really don't have to do this. We really don't have to contract with these farmers. But I'm saying this for one reason. I want the same contract as those farmers who are already contracting with PepsiCo. I want a chance to deliver the way that they have a chance to deliver. I don't want a different contract. I don't want to be treated special because I'm black. I simply want the same as. And it goes back to the government. If I apply for a loan and I qualify, I'd like to see it within 30 days, not 387 days. And if I can produce a potato, and I don't know a black farmer in this country, and we say down south, they can't grow a damn tater or an ear of corn. Every black farmer can grow a tater and an ear of corn. So it's offensive when they say, we're not going to do any contracts with you, and we're going in a different direction. Well, what direction are you going? Are you going in? And I watched the PepsiCo halftime show, you know. We can entertain as blacks, but they don't want you to own or be a part of the establishment. And that's what's wrong here, people. I'm not saying I want something different. I'm saying I want the same as. If you don't have any black farmers there, you said you can't find some. Here we are. I met all the qualifications. Then why can't we do these contracts? And the general public, Jim and Deanna, they need to hold PepsiCo accountable. You know, we buy the Pepsi. If I had a can of Pepsi, I'd pour some out tonight so y'all could see it.
Pour one out.
I threw all mine out, people. But if I had some, I would pour it out because that's the way they feel about us. And the general public has to say, you know what? This is supposed to be a company for everybody. I can walk in a supermarket and buy a can of Pepsi, but I can't get a damn contract.
So that's actually a really good point of where we're getting to. Sorry, Hightower, I'll let you go. It's your show, whatever. Hey, a lot of people I'm getting a lot of the angry emojis from Facebook popping up on my screen. A lot of people are really enraged and furious. And Steve, like you had said earlier, a lot of people just don't know how bad this is. And, you know, this corporate control from all the angles is mind-boggling. And so people want to know.
They sense that it's them too, Deanna, from what we were hearing earlier from people that are not in farming, not in rural areas even, but they're experiencing the same power. And you're talking about contracts, and Steve is talking about contracts. Who are the contractors? It's giant corporations now, yes. and we all of the small people, as they would have us believe that we are. We're battling the exact same power, and isn't that our potential for real change?
And that's what folks are asking in the comments is what can people do? And so I'm going to shamelessly share on our screen because I have that power. The newest issue of the Hightower Lowdown is all about this and includes lots of links to good people. And we had another great issue on monopolies, which I'll talk to you about probably but I'll put this link in the comments. So people want to know, Steve, where does Tester stand on this? Where are our representatives? Another action you can take, I'm going to put it up on screen right now, is with the Northern Plains Resource Council. They've got a petition for Tom Vilsack, who is actually one of Hightower's favorite people. Definitely Hightower has big love for Tom. I see those hearts in his eyes right now. He's seething at me. Oh my God, I felt the daggers. Woo, woo.
Yes, I've had problems with Vilsack. Now in his second term, in his first term as Ag Secretary, he could have done something. And to his credit, I think he and a couple of other people in the Obama administration tried. But then the economic powers that be within the administration came down and said, no, we're not going to enforce the Packers and Stockyard Act. No, we're not going to go after monopolies. No, we're not going to stand up for you. And they went away. And so the fights that these two people on the screen with us right now, that Steve and Tom have been right in that John had been right in the center of for their entire lives. They thought they'd made a breakthrough, and then poof, it just went away. And the guy that Obama had appointed to be the head, or I think he was to be the head of the Packard and Stockyard Act, he was a very strong guy. He was going to do it, and he left like within a year because all the support for what he wanted to do disappeared. And now here we are again. We got Biden. And he's at least he can say the word monopoly.
I'm about to tell you something else. But
Yeah.
the Secretary Vilsack is the longest serving secretary in American history.
Yeah,
He knows the problems with cattle
yes,
farmers.
he does.
He knows that the farmers, the problems with black farmers and small farmers, but he tends to play footsies with large-scale white farmers in this country. He wants to keep them happy. And corporate America, corporate farmers want to keep them happy. But that's not how this works. If you want to fix a problem, you got to grab the bull by the horns. And Steve Charter knows something where I'm going with this. And you got to ride it. And you got to ride the bull until he stops bucking.
Yeah.
You can't get off the bull while it's bucking and then say, well, you know what? I give up and I'm going over here and do something else. You got to ride the bull until it starts bucking. And that's what Secretary Vilsack has to do. I think he's a very nice guy, but I thought he was the wrong time in history to bring him back to USDA. I thought we needed new blood, someone that could look at these issues with a fresh mindset and a fresh vision about fixing the problems of small scale farmers. We're all getting shut out of this thing, and I think Steve and Jim, you guys hit the nail with the hammer, man. If we don't come together and say, look, we got to fix this thing for farmers in this country, then you're going to see more farmers going out of business, blacks at an enormous rate, and white farmers too. You're going to go out of business. You can't sell a cow for $1 a pound, and then think you're going to stay on the farm and make it to next year. It cost me $1.50 to raise the cow in the first place.
John, I think we
Go
had
ahead, Steve.
kind of the same instinct. Is you formed the Black Farmers Association, and many years ago we formed the Northern Plains Resource Council, and people like to think like of these lone rangers out there fighting this battle ourselves, and that's a losing strategy. A winning strategy is when we all get together, organize, because we if we're organized and have a strategy, and then if groups like yours and groups like ours can form coalitions and get together, then we can put a little heat on Vilsack. And I think,
Yes.
I think when there's a momentum building here, and they're seeing it and feeling it. And if we can put some heat on them, I think we can get them to start moving in our direction.
And this is our moment. This is our moment because consumers are enraged, and they're looking around. What's going on? So we are the ones to tell them what's going on. Not let PepsiCo and not let JBS and Tyson tell them what's going on. What's going on is that too few people control too much of the money and power, and they're using that control to help themselves at our expense.
That's
I
what
also
happened.
want to note on the consumer front, a lot of people are saying, is it better if I buy from one place or if I buy from another? And, while certainly voting with your dollars is super important in a lot of ways, this is a pretty fundamental structural issue that we have to do the hard work of getting structural change if we're going to address this stuff. Yes, absolutely. Buy from your local farmer, support them, get your CSA boxes, do all of the things. And it requires a systemic approach as well. You guys have, what's that?
Politics.
Yes, that too.
You can't just be. I mean, being a consumer is a political action, and that's important. But when you're dealing with monopolies, you have so few choices that your dollar gets diverted from the focus, and the focus is what Deanna is saying: structural. The corporate powers. And so we've got to build a politics. And we started that in the late 70s and 80s with the farm rebellion, the farm tractorcades and et cetera. I was a part of those things. We didn't ride a mule to Washington, but we rode some tractors up there. And I've been out in the Northern Plains Resource Council. I mean, these are tremendous organizations both of you are a part of, and so many others. And we had to start. You remember? I mean, we had Earl Butts. Actually, the Secretary of Agriculture actually say, "Get big or get out."
Yes.
I mean, just came right out and said it. and said that it's not bad that we're losing all these farmers because it frees them to do something useful with their lives. That was the Secretary of Agriculture.
Sonny Perdue, and I think I met with all these secretaries from since the Carter administration, and most of the presidents since the Carter administration. In my personal opinion, Sonny Perdue was the worst. He was the most arrogant, and he said something very similar to, in my FaceTime meeting with him. If you guys don't get bigger, you're not going to make it in agriculture. That's your problem. And you want us to get bigger, then you got to get us access to credit. We got to get some of these subsidies. These things too.
How did they get bigger? They got bigger with government help.
Bigger is not better, man. I like small farm beef.
And also, when I get calls all the time about, people want to buy direct from farmers. I think it's great. There's two styles of farming. You have the smaller scale farmer who would love to see you come by and buy some of his produce. And then you have the 3 commodity farmer, like me and Steve are doing with a side of beef cattle. Yes, I would welcome that, but also I got to sell my grain. I got to get a good price for my grain. I got to get a good price for my beef cattle. And I'm saying that because we still have to fix the problem, which is big corporate America. Even if that farmer does buy some produce from me, general public does come by and buy produce from me, it's still not the biggest portion of my farming business, which equates to me being able to pay a sizable mortgage, a sizable equipment loan for a new roller baler and a tractor. So selling produce won't make those payments is where I'm going, people. I got to be able to sell 1,000 bushel a trailer of soybeans and a 50 cattle trailer load of beef cattle in order to pay my mortgage, in October.
Yeah, I think we gotta forge this politics again. Jesse Jackson was a big force in that when he ran for president in 1988. In his campaigns, others have as well.
Yes,
people I've known like Paul Wellstone. We've had some great fighters in there battling for us. But we can't rely on just a fighter here and a fighter there. We've got to become a movement ourselves of consumers, of farmers, of workers, of environmentalists. We are the majority, and
that's
it. Yeah,
that's it.
Pull that together, and that's the hard thing to do, and that's what I call intentionality in politics.
I think we're at the time. I think
Democrats, Democrat, but we react to stuff rather than have an intentional purpose of we're going to build this real people's economy at a production level and a consumption level, environmental level, and at all levels. That again, we're all in this together.
And Jim, I think you just named it. So call that name again. The real people's what? That should be the slogan, man.
Yeah. I forgot my own brilliance. What was it? But anyway, yeah. But that's it, really, and that's the only thing that's ever changed America. Right. The original populist movement. You go back to the anti-slavery movement. You go back to the suffrage movement. You go back to the founding movement. It was all about people coming together to battle that centralized power, and overwhelmingly that has been corporate power. Now it is monopoly power, and monopsony, our word of the day, power that's running roughshod over all of us. And so that's the focus of building something that's actually going to make a difference, and it's the one thing that would make a difference, even with Biden. And again, I think they have good intentions, but they won't take the big step. It's not when I was first running for office. People say, "Well, who are you? What do you want to do?" And all the politicians will say, "Well, I want to be for all the people." Well, no, you don't. You can't be for all the people because a few of the people are running roughshod over all the people. So you got to be willing to be against the bastards. And that's the kind of maybe that's our political slogan: beat the bastards. To team up and do it. And here's a mighty big bull there that I was standing there. I was scared to death, by the way.
That was a very big bull.
And by the way, that bull turned with, you see my arm on the neck of the bull. That bull turned to look at me, and he pinned my arm back. And I thought, I may never get that arm back again. Luckily, I survived that moment. But, part of the political sacrifice. But anywho, y'all are doing terrific work. You're doing really important work, and I think now is our time. I know, all three of us have been in this fight for a long time, and we've had ups and we've had downs.
Yeah.
And it can be dissuading. I mean, you can think, oh Jesus, can we do this again? Well, yes, because that's what democracy is. Democracy is a task. It's not a given. It's not a prize. It's a task. We have to do it. And I think this could be our moment again, because so many the greed has become so expansive and obvious that the vast majority of the people see it. So now is a chance to build something, and we want to join with y'all in doing that. So we've got the Northern Plains group and the National Black Farmers group coordinates together. Do we not, Deanna?
Yeah.
We sure do. Right here, hightowerlowdown.org/inflation will get you to our new article on this entire topic. Also, another way you can stay in touch, you can get something free from us. Free, you say? Free? Yes. A weekly email from Hightower can land in your inbox. And
Just
you can.
invaluable.
It's just incredible. And we stay in touch with our guests regularly. We share what's happening with them. Follow us on social media, which is where most of you are watching this anyway. And we will happily hook you up if you get in touch with us, with both John and Steve and their organizations. I'm going to put up a couple of URLs one more time as we're closing out here. We've got Northern Plains Resource Council. This is their petition for Vilsack that y'all can sign, and you can get involved with all the stuff that Northern Plains are doing. We love that. And then we've also got John's organization, blackfarmers.org. You can get involved there, support, donate, sign up, do all the things. Yes. I'm energized.
We might need to all come together again. Willie Nelson pulled a group together in mid 80s, I guess it was, with the National Farmers and Ranchers Congress held in St. Louis. I was there, spoke there. Jesse Jackson, so many others were part of that, and it led to a better farm bill. Came out of that, not a good farm bill, but a better farm bill. And incrementalism sometimes counts. So maybe both of y'all might begin to kick that around together. How can we pull together, and we can bring in the consumer groups and the environmental groups and food and commercial workers and other great labor groups together, and just make a show, just get in the face.
Yeah, let's get Willie back there to help ramrod it, because he's still around. That'd be fun.
Yeah. Well, all right.
Let's do it.
Right. That's an assignment to all of us.
Okay.
I'm taking notes.
Continue to talk with each other and see if we might pull off something like that. I think we could get a lot of support from a lot of people, including Willie. Willie's still kicking. So
yeah.
Pull it together. Anywho.
100%.
Thank you all. We appreciate your being part of it, but mostly we appreciate your spirit and your fighting tactics and all that you're doing to make this a better world for all of us. And that's the kind of world we got to think of. Again, not a better world for the few, but for the many. So thank you all for what you're doing. And please stay in touch with us, and we will reach out to you, but also all of you who tuned in here tonight. Spread this word. We might make something happen. Who knows? Matches have been struck less than this together.
Right.
Thank you. Thanks for being with us tonight. See you soon.
Thank you, Jim. Thanks, John.
Bye,
Thanks,
y'all.
Deanna. Bye-bye.